All right, so today we are jumping into John Bradshaw's incredible book, Homecoming. It's built around this really powerful, kind of radical idea that hidden inside every single one of us is what he calls a wounded inner child, and its old, unresolved pain might just be secretly running our lives.
So let me ask you this. Do you ever find yourself reacting in a way that just feels way too big for the situation? You know, a sudden explosion of anger, or this tidal wave of shame, or maybe a feeling of neediness that just seems to pop up out of nowhere. Well, if you've ever felt that, you are definitely not alone. And according to Bradshaw, the reason for it is buried a lot deeper than you might think.
For Bradshaw himself, this whole investigation didn't start in a library. It started from a place of just utter confusion. This quote, it describes this moment where he was on a family vacation and he just completely lost it. He had no idea why he behaved that way, and that really painful moment, that was the spark for his entire life's work, to figure out what these powerful, hidden forces from our childhood are and how they secretly dictate so much of our adult lives.
Which, of course, brings us to our first section, Echoes from the Past. We're going to play detective here and investigate this mystery of why we as human beings sometimes end up sabotaging our own happiness, even when we consciously know better.
To really get a handle on this, Bradshaw tells this brilliant little parable. So, meet a guy named Rudy Revolvent. His life was, well, a total tragedy. After he dies, the ruler of darkness gives him an offer he can't refuse. You can live your entire life all over again and fix all your mistakes.
Now, Rudy's smart. He knows he's just going to make the same dumb mistakes if he can't remember them. So, he makes a counteroffer. And the ruler of darkness says, fine, I'll sweeten the deal. You can remember everything. Every bad decision, every wrong turn, every ounce of pain. Rudy's thinking, yes, I've got this. I mean, how can he possibly mess it up now?
But here's the absolute kicker. Even with perfect knowledge of everything that was about to go wrong, Rudy did it all again. He repeated his tragic life step by painful step. He made every single mistake all over again. Why? Because, and this is Bradshaw's whole point, just knowing something in your head isn't nearly enough to overcome the deep unconscious patterns that are wired into you.
And this leads us to a really key concept, the compulsion to repeat. Here's how Bradshaw explains it. Our primitive brain, our survival brain, is wired to keep us alive. So when we have a traumatic experience as a kid, our coping mechanism, whether that's shutting down or getting angry or being a people pleaser, gets stamped into our brain as a life-saving technique. The brain literally locks it in, thinking, hey, this worked. And so we keep replaying those same patterns as adults long after they've started causing more harm than good.
So what is the source of that compulsion? What's underneath it all? Well, in this next section, we're finally going to give it a name.
Okay, this right here is the absolute heart of Bradshaw's work, the wounded inner child. It's the part of our psyche that basically got stuck. It never grew up. It's frozen in time, still carrying all the pain, all the fear, all the shame from things that happened way back when. And here's the thing, this inner child doesn't just sit there quietly. Oh no, it unconsciously leaks out, contaminating our adult relationships, our careers, our emotions, everything.
Just look at this image for a second. It's such a perfect metaphor. We think we're walking around as competent adults, but really, we're carrying this sad, scared, neglected kid inside of us. And what's even crazier is that our parents were probably carrying their own wounded inner children. It's this weight that gets passed down through generations, this invisible backpack full of pain that explains so much of why we struggle as adults.
So how on earth does this even happen? That brings us to section 3, the anatomy of a wound. Let's take a look at how that spontaneous, joyful, curious wonder child that we all start out as gets lost somewhere along the way.
The primary weapon, the thing that does the most damage, is what Bradshaw calls toxic shame. And let's be clear, this is not the healthy kind of shame that tells you, hey, you made a mistake. No, this is a deep, soul-level belief that you are a mistake. It's that nagging voice inside that whispers you are fundamentally, fatally flawed.
And where does this voice come from? Well, it's born out of things like abandonment, abuse, neglect, ridicule. It gets supercharged by the terrifying, out-of-control rage of a parent, or the humiliation from a sibling, or just that constant feeling of not being seen, of not being valued for who you really are.
The thing about this kind of pain is that it feels too big to hold inside. It's unbearable. And so, without even realizing it, we find ways to get rid of it. We pass it on. It becomes the engine for our own controlling behavior, our sharp criticism, our constant blame, our impossible perfectionism, And yes, our own rage. The wounded person becomes the one who wounds others. And we have to understand, this isn't some minor issue. Bradshaw argues that toxic shame is the fuel for so many of our biggest problems: addiction, codependency, violence. He calls it a spiritual bankruptcy. It's a soul sickness that gets passed from parent to child, a terrible inheritance that just keeps going until one person is brave enough to finally stop the cycle. But, and this is the most important part, this is where the story pivots to hope. Section 4, the journey home. This is all about how we move from that wounded state back to rediscovering our original nature, our sense of wonder.
So let's look at this comparison. On the one hand, you have the wounded child. It's stuck in the past, it's reactive, it's fearful, it's needy. But then you have the wonder child, and that's our true self. It's creative, it's spontaneous, it's joyful and curious. The goal isn't to get rid of the wounded part of you. The goal is to heal it, so that the wonder child finally feels safe enough to come out and play again.
And this image right here, it just perfectly captures the new job we have to take on. You see the adult on the left, kind of trapped by his past? The goal is to become that figure in the middle, a wise, loving, powerful champion for that little kid inside. Your job is to set their joy free, to celebrate their spirit.
So the journey home, it's not about pretending the past didn't happen. It's an active mission of reclamation. It's about you, the adult you are today, stepping up and finally becoming the consistent, loving, and protective parent that your inner child never had, but always, always deserved.
So where do you even begin with something this big? Bradshaw offers some really concrete, powerful first steps. And one of the most important is to give your inner child the messages, the affirmations it never got to hear. Kids blame themselves for everything. So reparenting starts by gently and repeatedly lifting that heavy burden. You can literally tell that child inside you, you are not responsible for your parents' marriage. You are not responsible for your dad. You are not responsible for your mom. None of the family problems were your fault. You were just a kid.
And that leaves us with one last question to sit with. If you could just get quiet for a moment, quiet enough to listen past all the noise of adult life and all those old wounds, what is your wonder child waiting to tell you? What dream, what joy, what crazy adventure have they been holding on to, just waiting for you to listen? According to Bradshaw, the homecoming begins the very moment you decide to ask.